people. But then he started to introduce me to people, and every single person he introduced me to was the right person. And it was just a perfect connection, absolutely amazing introductions. And Josh is somebody who I found just has an innate ability to be able to connect, to grow, to nurture networks, to nurture people. And then I come to find out it's not a natural ability. It's something he's worked his ass off to learn how to do. And now he actually has been helping me figure that out. And I do a lot of training on linguistics, communication, on building rapport and connection. And Josh has been able to take that and really go to a deeper level. So, Josh, thank you so much for taking this time. I wanted to connect you with my audience, but I also want to so let's go ahead and get started. Tell me a little bit about you, about your background. Let people know who you are.
I would love to, but first I just want to say thank you. Man, I really appreciate connecting. Again, when you connect with great people and you can build a connection, you can build a relationship, really. It's always fantastic to find great people. And so thank you for being a great people or a great person and surrounded by great people. And thank you for the opportunity really to come on and share. But as far as a little bit about me, yeah, you're right. It took a lot of work. It seemed like a natural, innate ability. And while maybe it is, it requires, like you talked about, training. And the problem was I didn't have any training. But I'll back up. Let me back up to kind of an origin story of this and what happened. So I built a marketing agency because I wanted to help people, right? I want to help business owners be better at attracting the ideal buyer and all that stuff. And what happened was I would go out and about doing this thing called networking that we're all supposed to do. And so I go out, I network, and it wasn't very effective. I wasn't getting results. I actually did it for about 2 years and then I quit. And then it was later I got back into it. But what would happen, what I found to happen was sometimes people would say, Josh, what do you do? They ask me, they come to me and they say, what do you do? And then I respond. I say, well, I own a digital marketing agency. And then they would automatically knee-jerk response say, oh, I don't need help with marketing. I get all the business I need from, can you guess what it is, Alex?
Word of mouth.
There you go. Exactly. And so they say that, and like I wasn't trying to sell them. I was just answering a question, but this defense went up. I'm like, oh, I don't need that. I get all I need from word of mouth. But eventually I started asking. I'd say, oh, okay. And I'd do it in a very polite, diplomatic way. But I would essentially say, how do you do it? Because if they got a way of I built a marketing agency to help people. And if they got a process that I can use and I can learn and I can help people, great. What is it? But no matter how many times I asked, how do you do it? What's your process? I never actually got a process. I never got a real answer, a real response that was valuable. The best they would do is they would say, well, I do good work. You do good work and you'll get referrals. Well, that's nice, but that wasn't enough for me. And I'm a very curious person. I am a problem solver. I love to figure out if I got something that needs to get figured out, I call it cracking the code. Like how do I crack the code on this thing to make it work? And so I joined BNI in 2019. And BNI, for those who aren't familiar, it's a professional organization for networking and giving referrals. And I thought that'd be a great way to help me connect and try word of mouth and referrals and all that. And so I did that. And while BNI has been very, very, and I'm still in it, it's been very beneficial to me. It gave me a platform or a tool through which I can track success. I can track referrals. I can track revenue generated. And there are tips and advice and you might say tricks or tactics to use, but even that wasn't exactly a process that I could just implement and really use. And so what I did with, maybe it's crazy, maybe it's not, but an insatiable curiosity, I ended up having over 1,000 one-to-one meetings a year. And I did that for years, really figuring out how do I do this thing called a word of mouth. And as the years went by, business owners, business professionals I'm meeting with, they would say, man, Josh, the way you're doing it, this is weird. And I don't know what you're doing or how it works, but it's clearly effective and I really appreciate it. Can you teach me how to do that? And my answer was no. I couldn't teach them how to do it because it was countless hours of muscle memory and adapting and experience. And I didn't have a process. I was doing a process, but I didn't know how to break that down and provide it to somebody else. And so after being asked enough times, eventually I was like, okay, yeah, I'll go ahead. The answer is no, I can't train you, but let me go ahead and give me some time to put together, digest, and break it out into an actual outline, a course, a training. And so I did that. And it took about a year and a half to really do that the way I wanted it done. And I was going to do it as a video train, and I still will make it an on demand. You pay access, you can consume the training, and I shot the footage. Most of the footage is already shot. But then I was thinking, not long ago, it was March, April. I was thinking, I already have the training, I already have the process, I already have demand. Why not offer an in person, just come, we'll meet at 8 hours. So I turned it into an 8 hour training workshop style, and 4 different sessions, 2 hours and every other week ish. And that way people can come in and I can start doing it while I'm still waiting on post production to be finished for an on demand virtual version. And that was going really well. And then people taking the training, they're like, Josh, I got people outside of the area who I wish could take this. Do you have an online version? And I said, no, but I can. And so that's what led to the virtual one that you were talking about that comes up on October 24th. But that was really, and there's a whole lot more I could share, a whole lot more pieces to the puzzle and the story. But on a high level, I wanted to figure it out. I figured it out. I put it into an 8 hour training. And now that's what I'm delivering. And that's one way I'm helping people make an impact, building relationships and all that.
So let's talk about the importance of relationships. A lot of people may understand, at least at a cognitive level, the importance of relationships. But one of the things that I love is it's not about. So I recently read an article about different types of relationship mindsets. It only listed two. I think there's three. There's the exchange relationship, which they talk about the different types of exchange. There's the communal relationship, which is I put in with no expectation, just assume that everyone's putting into this thing. And then there's the consume, which is I take. Is I'm looking out for me. I'm looking out for what I'm going to get. And unfortunately, a lot of times when people are at networking events, they really approach it from the exchange perspective. If I give to you, you give to me, or the consumer. What can I get out of this conversation? In B&I, they talk about something called the giver's gain. If I give to you, then I'll likely get business. The problem is that's the exchange mindset. But when you look at B&I, the actual intent was they studied and found the people who gave got the most, which was actually a communal mindset, not an exchange mindset. So tell me a little bit about your perspective, because I've watched you network and you're just like, here, let me connect you, let me connect you, let me connect you. And it's all about pouring out and then allowing that to kind of come back. So talk about the importance of relationships and how that plays in your mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for asking that. So it's a concept that I coined a term for. So I call it the golden pyramid. So think of a pyramid. It's kind of like a triangle. On the base, you got a triangle, 3 different points, right? Yeah. And when it comes to helping people, because I've asked so many people, why do you do what they do? And what do they say? They say, I like to help people. I mean, that's so often that's what it is. Yeah. And I like to help people too. And so when it comes to networking, thinking of it from this context, there are 3 people involved. There's the person that I know who has a pain. They have a problem. It's an issue. They're hurting. They're struggling. And you could pick any industry. Let's just say they have a broken toe. There you go. They got a broken toe. I know someone who's got a broken toe. Do I want them to be in pain? No, of course not. Absolutely not. And then if I can help them by connecting them to someone who can help their toe situation, wouldn't that be something that I'd want to do? Of course. Of course. And so I got a person who needs to be helped. Now, let's just say I know someone who their specialty is those who have broken toes. They can fix the toe. They can alleviate the problem. That's what they do. That's what they do for a living. And if I know someone who that's what they do for a living, and I can help them improve their business and achieve satisfaction with their purpose of helping those with broken toes by sending them someone with a broken toe, why in the world would I not help that person? Right? I mean, it just makes sense.
Right.
And if I know a person who's got a broken toe and a person who can solve that problem, and well, so those are two different points of a base of a pyramid. You got the buyer. The buyer is needing something solved. They need a solution to be provided to them. I know someone who is really is a referral partner, or someone who is at least good that I can refer. They don't only have to be a partner per se, but they can solve a solution. And if I can help both those people, that's fantastic. But then the other part of the base is myself. I'm the third part. And do I want to make pain go away for the buyer? Yes. Do I want to make pain go away for the person who can provide the service? Absolutely. Pain such as they need buyers, pain they need to grow, they need income, they need whatever. And then for myself, I'm not going to feel good if the people that I know who need each other aren't connected. That's almost a pain for me. So if I can help them, that makes me feel better. Great. But what's the expression with the rising tide? All ships rise or something like that, right? And so what happens is when I help connect two different people and they need each other, then it's not required. I don't force, I don't require it, but it's that feeling of reciprocity. They're going to say, Josh, man, that was awesome. What do you need? Can I help you? Who do you need? Who is the person in pain for you, Josh, that I could send your way? And it just naturally happens. And again, it's not required, but the more people I network with, the more people I connect with, the more little pyramids I can see, the more I can help a community. So it goes to building community. And there's one more point on a pyramid, and that's the top. And so it's those three. When you have people who help people and you're all connected and you're all actively helping because you want to help, then you all go up, like a pyramid points up. And the up is just the success. It's a community of success because you're all supporting each other. So that's the way it should be approached. So often what happens is talking about the motivation for doing networking. So many times it's, I need to make sales. And if it's a sales mindset, they're going to go out, they're going to be very salesy, and you can see it, you can feel it. Chances are they're not going to get the results they want. But if they can instead approach it from a relationship mindset of helping people, then they will actually be more effective at getting the sales that they seek.
Yeah. I love that as you were talking about the base of the triangle, the base of the pyramid. The thing that popped in my mind was the tessellation, because as I help you and them and I connect the two of you, and then he connects me, and it's like this whole thing, it just spreads as a massive network. And
Yeah.
so it was a really cool visualization. But it is true. As we support each other, everybody rises. And it's interesting. I was talking with a guy, his name is Dylan Shively, and he was telling me, we were talking about competition. I'm like, I just don't like competition. He says, no, but competition is really, if I'm better, then I show you what's possible and I force you to raise your standards and raise your elevation. And so competition, as long as it's done in this kind of a setting where it's like, I'm supporting you, but I'm also going to challenge you by raising myself up and encouraging you, come with me, let's do this. And I don't know if you can, it's a playful banter, but I love that community feel, because then it brings it into the joy of the game. It brings it into the joy of the game.
Yeah, it turns into collaboration. Some of my best collaborators are who should be competitors. And in a sense, they are, but in another sense, man, I'll refer them work because they're great competitors, and they'll refer me work because I'm a great, collaboration. It turns into collaboration as opposed to competition.
Yeah, and it's fun because I have times where it's just like I'm at capacity and I can't take somebody, and I trust this other person and they're a competitor. They're like, why would you send it to them? I'm like, because quite frankly, from a personality perspective, I work with a certain type of personality. I can take you as a client, but you're not going to love me and I'm not going to love working with you. So I'm going to refer you to this other person who you're going to love working with them. And they're very different. Like for me, I'm much more of a laid back, hey, let's figure it out. Let's figure you out. I do the internal work. I've got other people who it's more like, hey, here's how you do the sale, go out, shake the hand, do the thing, get off your ass and push yourself. It's different personality styles. And it's like finding those different networks to be able to grow. So I love the concept of network. So as you're talking about networks, talk to me about the difference between building a local network versus building a nationwide or worldwide network.
Okay, so there are different contexts from which I could talk about that. So just thinking through when it comes to local versus national, it can depend on what you're looking for. What do you want? Well, for you, for example, I've introduced you to one person and she works with people all over the world, especially the US. and she's not confined to a specific geography. And it doesn't matter. So like this individual I'm thinking of right now, she helps individuals get access to capital. So if you need capital, she can help. And it's not private equity. It's not venture capital. It's not necessarily a particular loan. She says, what do you need? What's your situation? And based off of that, this might be a good route, or this would be a good route, or so on and so forth. And so I spent 4 months, and I would do a lot of networking events. I spent 4 months, and I would say, hey, sometimes the people I work with need help with capital. Who do you know who is the subject matter expert? All things capital, hands down. And people would make introductions. And I wanted someone locally, ideally, because then I can sit down over coffee, I can build an in-person relationship. And I looked for that. And it took 4 months for me to find someone. And that person wasn't even local. I live in Pensacola. She lives in Jacksonville, which is 5 hours away, Florida. And so like, man, that but it's finding the right person. Now, can she help people that I interact with in Florida? Absolutely, yes. Can she help people in Arizona? Yeah, sure, because she's not confined. So find the person who can help your ideal buyer that you're coming across. And if you got a local one, great. If they're not local, a lot of networking events. And so then same thing with you, Alex, like what you've developed with AI. That's something I don't have someone right here in Pensacola, Florida, who does what you do and can help people from that capacity. So if I have someone, they might come to me locally first, but if I don't get that, I find someone outside the area, fine, that's great. But what happens is, as I find people who can solve needs, whether they're local or not, next thing you know, I end up having great resources that I can introduce to anybody anywhere. And I'd kind of rather have that than just only local, because United States or beyond is much a bigger pool to find excellence in than just a local market. With the local markets, the benefit there are certain benefits to having local, especially if what you do, like if you're in real estate. If you're in real estate, then absolutely. I mean, you can't have certain people outside of the area as your partner, you might say. So it really depends on your industry, but yeah, that's
a lot of fun. About 2 years ago, I went out to Spain and I did a tour. I went to Madrid, I went to Sevilla, depends upon how you want to do it. And I went to Barcelona. And while I was in Barcelona, there was a place called the Paella Club. And the owner, absolutely amazing. The experience is unlike anything else. You go, you drink, you have fun, you make paella, you learn about the culture. It's just an amazing experience. Not something where it's like you go and you keep a relationship, but I did. I maintained a relationship with this guy. I pinged him. I send an email once in a while. I think about it all the time because it was a good experience and stuff. But it was just he himself, good guy, good people. And yesterday, I was at a BNI event and met somebody, and I was talking with them, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to be gone for 2 weeks because I'm going out to Spain." And I went, "Oh, like yeah, I'm going to visit Barcelona." Go, cool. Send me an email. Let me connect you. Not a connection, not a local connection, not something where it's a natural, but it just happens to be in conversation. And all the time, I've got friends and people all over the world that I've connected with, but it's that as long as you maintain some semblance of connection, it can just be a ping. Like, Josh, thinking about you, you rock, just letting you know, but it maintains that energetic connection worldwide. And then all of a sudden you hear something, it goes like, oh, I know who that is. I think for me, one of the biggest things that I found that would be helpful, and I think this is something that you do really well, and you've demonstrated that 4 times just in this conversation, is what is it that causes the person to think of you? What is it that causes the person to think of you? Because whenever someone says AI, when they're talking about that, or they're talking about that life coach, or they're talking about personality test, people go, "Ooh, shit, Alex!" Like, because I've been just talking about it and pushing it and working with it, it's been my thing. But it's like, how do you develop and really get clear on what that is? And it's the importance of getting clarity about self, who you are. So let's talk a little bit. It's like, what's the importance of knowing yourself when you're networking and connecting with people?
Yeah, that's one of the very first things in the training, actually. So people go out and they do networking. And what does that mean? It means this is what it means to most people. What it means is you go out, you hand out business cards, you have a quick conversation, talk to bunches of people, and you go and you rinse and repeat. That's often networking. But when it comes to really doing networking, the first thing you need to do is you need to prepare yourself. You need to be able to answer who is your ideal buyer. And that's not everybody. You got to get a whole lot of a better answer than everybody. So
I can
then,
help anybody with anything.
right, sure, I can, yeah, I'll send them to you. Yeah, right. No, yeah.
Doesn't work.
So
It's hard to refer everybody because nothing causes that ping, that thought of I know. Because when it's I can help anyone with things, it's like, well, then who causes me to think of you?
right, exactly.
Yeah.
So you have to know what who you are. Well, you need to know who your buyer is. You need to know who your buyer is. Then the next thing is you need to understand what it is that you sell. Because if you can't articulate what you sell and they say, what makes you different from everybody else? If you can't answer that and you can't really articulate it well, then you're not going to be very effective. And so, but when you understand what you sell, at the same time, you understand what you don't sell. You can say, this is what I do, and these related things, that's not what I do. But sometimes your ideal buyer needs those other things. So if you're going to take care of your ideal buyer, and you know your ideal buyer needs those other things too, then wouldn't you want to be able to refer them to quality people who do those other things well? Absolutely. And if you care about your ideal buyer, it might be in your best interest to figure out who do those other things and vet them on your buyer's behalf. So what happens is when you do that, when you identify who your buyer is, you identify what you don't do and who does do those things, then you become a subject matter expert in a wide array. You become, let's say, real estate, for example. You're a realtor and you don't do you're not the title closing. You don't do home inspections, maybe even an appraiser. And we got hurricanes coming through Florida. Like one right now is yeah, coming around, yeah. And so when you're going to have an insurance or like a public adjuster, who are you going to use? And insurance, like all those different things. If you're a realtor and you do the due diligence to figure out who are the people that you would use, who would you refer your mom or your dad or your sibling to or your best friend to? If you do the due diligence and then you meet with a prospect and you say, well, you know what? This is what this is who you should be talking to. Then you become a brilliant connected individual that separates you from all the other realtors who aren't necessarily taking the time or they already have a pre-created list that they don't even know many of the people. So there's different ways to do things, but that's how you do it. You know who your buyer needs and you vet on behalf of your buyer.
Yeah. I mean, you take that one step further, they need childcare. They need, they need somebody to do lawn care service. They need somebody to be able to help walk their dogs when they're traveling because they've got dogs. It's like, hey, I've got these dog sitters I know that do a really great job. And so if you're ever traveling and you need a dog sitter, it's like, how do you identify what are those things that aren't even in your field? They're not even closely related, and then build those relationships so that you're constantly able to provide value to everybody that you need.
Yeah. So what you do is you do a little inventory of who do I need that I can refer to. And then here's the thing. You want to identify those people, but identify the people who have the same ideal buyer. So let's use marketing as an example. Let's say I build websites and I build websites for startups just getting started. I want them to have a quality website, but I know they have very limited budget. So I can make a website for $1,000. Let's just say that's an example. Okay.
Yep.
Now I know someone else who does marketing and they do paid ads. And maybe I don't do paid ads like Google ads, Facebook ads, all that. Maybe I don't do that, but I know they do that. But so I think I can refer to them. I think I can. But in reality, they're not going to touch my ideal buyer with a cheap website because their paid ads are way outside of the budget of someone who's getting a cheap website. And so it just does, it sounds like it makes sense, but it doesn't because we don't have the same ideal buyer. On the flip side, is there someone who can do paid ads and they can actually work with that cheap website type of an individual? So you want to make sure that you not only find the ideal buyer and people who can work in the same fields, like home services, whatever, plumber, babysitting, movers, but also they can work with that type of buyer with their kind of a budget. Once you find those people, then what you do is this. You say, you might be in a BNI or some networking, and you say, I'm looking to connect with someone who does, they're a mover. because I got people who are moving all the time. They're moving in, they're moving out, and I want the go-to mover. And the reason I'm looking for them is because I want to be able to give referrals to them. Now, I don't know who you know. I don't have a go-to or enough go-tos. So if you could send me an introduction to a mover, that'd be fantastic. I want to be able to get them referrals. I just need to know what a good referral looks like. And I do that by meeting with them. What's going to happen is you're going to get the referral. You're going to get referrals to people who are movers. And then you're going to meet with those movers. And then why would a mover want to meet with you? Well, because of referrals. That's a great reason the mover wants to meet with you if you're a realtor. Yep. But why would you want to meet with the mover? Well, every time they got a move coming up, if they know about a move is going to be coming up in advance, don't you want the mover to refer to you as the realtor? It goes both ways. You're both working with the same ideal buyer. So find people who serve the same ideal buyer and then see who wants what kind of referrals. And I can tell you, I got a list of realtors in Pensacola and the area, and they're not all the same. That one works with VAs, military. That one loves first-time home buyers. That one hates first-time home buyers. Give them the luxury home. They're all different. And so you can have multiple of the same profession, and that makes you a super connector and super valuable for every one of those people.
Oh, Josh, I absolutely love this conversation. It's so fascinating when we look at the dynamics of people and interactions. You've got a class coming up October 24th. It starts. I know I'm looking forward to it. Tell us a little bit about that class. How can people register? Where can they go?
Yeah. So the class, it's broken up into 4 parts. So 8 hours, that would be torture. You just information overload for an 8-hour course. And so it's split into 4 sessions. And the first session is all about preparing. How do you prepare? Like I already said, it's who's your buyer, what are you selling, and also how do you do a 60-second commercial? Or maybe it's a 45-second or 30-second or 2-minute, but if you're networking, what is a framework or frameworks that you can use to have a never-ending supply of commercials that are effective out and about networking? So you come to that, get that first session, to get clarity on your ideal buyer and what you sell and how to do a commercial. Then you go out for 2 weeks, as much as you can between the next session and practice that. Then the next session, now you've been prepared, the next part is all about meeting. So now you're going to meet people. How do you meet them? How do you identify who those people, the mover, the realtor, the title closing, home inspector, how do you identify those people for yourself that you should be connecting with? So then first we do that, we identify, but then on the second day, we go into how do you vet them? Because knowing a mover doesn't mean they're the mover you should refer. So how do you actually vet individuals? So we go through that. And then the last part of the second day, which is, again, it's about meeting, is how do you go to open networking events? How do you go to BNI? How do you go to after hours for chambers? How do you go to whatnot and do open networking in a way that actually makes it so you leave saying, oh man, that was worth it, as opposed to saying, was that worth it? You don't want to have a question mark on the, you don't want an exclamation mark on the end of that. So that's the second part. The third part, the third session, it goes into connecting. So great, congratulations, you're prepared. You've met people, the right people, at least they might be the right people. Now you need to connect with them. And this is where the transaction comes up. So many times people are so busy trying to sell at somebody that they miss the relationship. The transaction is the enemy of a relationship. And they're so focused on the transaction that they never get the relationship. So how do you build a connection, which happens with relationships? How do you do that during your first meeting so that by the end of the first meeting, they say, dude, I want another meeting. It's like a date. How do you get them to want a second date? Because if you can get them to want a second date, you can go so much further in a relationship. So that's the third part. The fourth part is influence. Now that you've got these connections, how do you influence them? And I'd say there's a difference between, just to clarify, what does influence mean? And what's the difference between manipulate and influence? And I'll tell you, the difference between the two is this. If you're going to manipulate someone, you're going to connect with an individual, and you might not actually connect, but you'll be with an individual, and you're going to force them to take certain steps so that the outcome is what you want them to take because it benefits you in some way. Like you want them to do something, so you guide them to do that so you get what you want. That's manipulation. Influence can also drive someone to take certain actions, but the difference is in influence, you're providing all the options that you know of. You're giving free guidance and counsel to let them make a decision. And if it goes the way you want, fine, great. If it doesn't go the way you want, fine, great. It's what they need. And so if you can influence people, then well, how do you do that? And so that last session really, it's about influence, but I share the best advice that I wish I could go back in time and share with myself as it relates to networking. We talk about referral networking groups. How do you join or vet or determine whether or not you should and where you should join for like a BNI or an organization such as that? And then we also talked about mindset. And so the mindset, like the golden pyramid that I talked about, that comes up in mindset along with some other things. So that's it. As far as how to join, I've got a link specifically for you. It's got a discount that for those who connect through you.
Yep, I'll add it to the comments in each of these, so that way when people go back and watch, they can grab it on the link.
Yeah,
so
that'd be the way to register. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it. Always enjoy our conversations and enjoy connecting. And thank you for letting me share you and some of your wisdom with my audience. So guys, thank you very much. Remember, reality isn't fact. Reality isn't